Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Free Spirit Academy podcast with spiritual life and brand coach Jess Blanche. Free Spirit Academy is about you being fully you. My name is Randy Moss, and I'm an eating psychology coach and Kundalini yoga teacher, bringing you conversations about freedom. Largely from rigid diets and painful body image, but ultimately it's about the freedom to be yourself. This is about honoring our own bodies and our purest self-expression. Welcome to the podcast. I see a whole lot is that all good coaching is kind of the same. Maybe I'm wrong. This is what I'm seeing. Like whether we start out talking about binge eating or business, it's all going to come down to self-understanding, self-acceptance, self-love, self-expression. And obviously we all have different histories and there'll be different tools, but it all kind of ends up being life coaching in a way. For example, the last podcast when we talked to Tracy Brown, we talked about how taking off diet labels and really learning to listen to our bodies often makes us quite unique, or some might just say weird. Like, it doesn't tend to lead you to eating like everyone else if you're really exploring and listening. You'll often be the odd duck in the room, and you're totally all right with it because you're totally on your own path. And Jess and I talk about the very same thing in this conversation in terms of rebellion. There's definitely an accepted way of, quote, being a rebel, and plenty of people who want to claim the label and look that certain way. Then there's the fact that truly being yourself is going to be inherently rebellious because none of us are going to fit into any mold or category or label. So I love Jess for so many reasons, and I think that we mutually cringed our way through this conversation with terms like playing big and being authentic because they're so overused and misunderstood, but having followed and learned from Jess for the last couple of years, she really does breathe new life into them. I love that she's a fellow but former yoga teacher and infuses her teachings with her training in life coaching, among many, many other fascinating experiences that we'll talk about. And among the topics we discussed, we talked about what it means to listen to intuition, and then what happens when our intuition doesn't lead us where we think it will. Trying to be accepted by other people because we don't accept ourselves. And like I was talking about just a moment ago, a fresh take on phrases like being authentic, being a rebel, playing big, and all sorts of other good life coachy things. I hope you love this conversation with Jess Blanche. So on your website, you mentioned that you teach your clients to trust their unique flavor of self-expression. And that grabbed me, right? Because any food word, like there was cookie cutter in there. There was all this stuff that I was like, ooh, yes. Because I work in eating psychology, and there can be so much self-expression being held back when we're struggling with disordered eating. And often in there somewhere is this fear of fully being seen and heard as who and what we are. And obviously, this isn't exclusive to the eating disorder world. Like, humans have all sorts of ways that we avoid being true to ourselves. And of course, there are all sorts of reasons why. But for you, what was it that made you look around the coaching industry and realize, like, I've got some things to say, and they're not necessarily going to fit into this shiny cookie cutter, just think about the happy stuff and you'll manifest your dreams sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever really started thinking about authenticity in business was when I was in network marketing. And when I reached this leadership rank in my network marketing company, I had a lot of people in my upline telling me how I need to be showing up, what I need to be doing, what I need to be saying, and how I need to say it to be successful. And that really just rubbed me the wrong way. And you've been following me, so I'm kind of a rebel. And if someone tells me to do something, I just throw my middle finger up and I'll do the opposite. So essentially that's what I did with that business that I had. I threw my middle finger in the air and just said, you know what? I'm going to do this my way because what you're telling me does not feel good to me. And that's really when my coaching business was born. And I decided that, I knew that what was going to make people successful was owning who they really were and expressing who they really were, not trying to be like anything else. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started coaching how to really be yourself in business.
I'm always so amazed when I hear things like that, because was there a journey leading up to that? Because I think of too, like when I was growing up, I grew up religious and I really like bought the whole thing. And like I was a missionary and I was all in, and it took me so long to sort of find my own, or to find any sort of truth without questioning things. And then I would have friends who would be like, yeah, I never bought it. Like I was a kid and I was like, this is bullshit. And so that's always impressive to me. And even when I first worked with a business coach, I was like, okay, I've got to do the things that they're telling me to do. And then eventually I found my own voice. But for you, was it really just immediately like, nope, not going to do it. This isn't me? Or was there a bit of a journey before you were getting into your own business?
Oh yeah. I mean, my whole life has been a journey. I'm still on that journey. I'm about to be 36 and I'm still really learning how to use my voice. But I think, we grow up and we're told stories about who we are or who we need to be, how we need to show up in the world to be accepted, to get ahead, all these things. And we take those beliefs on as our truth without questioning them a lot of times. And those like inner nudges or those like gut feelings, you can call them, that something doesn't feel right to you. Those are the things to start listening to and to start following. And the thing that's going to build your trust up in yourself is really taking that time to center and ground in yourself and stop looking at what everyone else is doing and what they're saying, and ask yourself, what do I think? And that's a really good place to start.
Mm-hmm. And where do you go about, or like, when did you first have that you remember, right? Because I'm sure maybe it happened a long time and you didn't really realize it, but you had a distinct gut feeling that like, ooh, I should follow this. Do I follow this? Do I trust this? Is this something trustworthy? And then you followed it and realized like, oh, this is a messenger for me. Like, when did you start listening to would you say like listening to your body or listening to your instincts? Like, how do you describe that process?
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of ignoring it for a long time. Yeah. I have a pretty strong intuition, but I was not listening to it. So there were so many times and a lot of times in relationships, this would come up and I would just feel like it was wrong or that, I wasn't supposed to be where I was. I needed to be doing something else. And I shoved it down for the longest time because I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. So really my prerogative was being accepted by other people because I wasn't accepting myself. And that's why I wasn't really listening to myself. Right. But like the very first time that I can think of that I really just listened and made a decision was, actually when I was really religious. I was coming out of the Baptist church and just really feeling like I had a very deep connection with like my spirituality or higher power, but the way I was being taught and everything I was seeing in church wasn't really serving me, and it didn't feel like my truth anymore. So the day I decided to quit going to church was huge for me. And it was really hard because I grew up going to church and those were all my friends and that's what I knew. But that was the first time. And I was like, no, I need to honor myself. And then it was up and down after that. And then when I found yoga was really when I connected back in with my intuition, with my spirituality. And that's actually what sort of opened the door to me being an entrepreneur as well, was doing yoga.
Ooh, I want to like pull that all apart and spread that out and talk about so many little things in there. That's really interesting. As you're talking about the day that you decided to stop going to church, it's bringing back memories of, I had a distinct day too, where I was like, you know what? I think I'm done. Mm-hmm. I really think I'm done here. How old were you, by the way?
I think I was 19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. We were the same age. So I love that you said, so you had that distinct intuition. Your intuition was strong and you finally decided to start listening and you took that really big step. But then there were ups and downs and it wasn't just like, oh, this is my happily ever after. This is my after story. Because I talk about this a lot in, reconnecting to your body and healing your relationship with food and all of this. It's not like this one magic thing that you're going to make a decision and here you are healed. It's like, no, there's going to be a journey and you're going to have probably big moments of insight and moving forward and healing. And then there's going to be like little sticky steps and confusion again. And that's okay. Like you're still on the journey.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I see a lot in the coaching world. And especially like there have been a couple people that have invited me on their podcast recently to talk about my quote unquote success story and how I've like made it. I'm like, I haven't made it. Like, I feel like a success, but there's no, like, I don't want to perpetuate the belief or like the misconception that there is some sort of end destination that you get to and then everything's perfect and you don't have any problems anymore, because that's not how life is.
Oh, absolutely. And because I end up saying the same thing too. Like I will of course tell my story and say, look, I'm healed and I used to struggle with bulimia and binge eating and blah, blah, blah. However, I always want to be clear and say like food is still a teacher for me and my body is still a teacher for me. And I am still on a journey too. And there's infinite amounts more freedom than there was 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 years ago. But again, like all of us are still on a journey. So when you left the church, you were 19, you're sort of figuring out this whole intuition thing and realizing like, oh, hey, maybe I can trust this feeling. How did you get into yoga?
Well, I went crazy for about 8 years. And by crazy, I mean, like, I just partied. I partied for a long time. I just felt like I hit a point where it just wasn't fun anymore. Like I realized that the reason I was drinking is because I felt so insecure, and that's how I was coping to be around people. And once I had a coach once. Can I say cuss words on this show?
Do whatever you like.
I had a coach once call it your fuck this shit moment. And that's really what I had. Like I had enough of feeling crappy. And so I was looking for other routes to feel better. And like at the time, my anxiety was just at an all-time high. And so I started going to yoga, and that was like the one thing that would calm me down and get me out of my head and into my body. And so I started doing yoga. And then a couple years later, I decided I wanted to teach yoga. So then I got certified to teach yoga.
I love that. So was that the first realization you had that like, oh, I'm super in my head and this is where so much of my anxiety is coming from, because I'm not having this sort of felt experience and of moving, like letting the anxiety move through me? Was this like a revelation to you in yoga?
It was. I mean, really, yoga was the first time I ever really felt truly empowered, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But when I decided to take yoga teacher training, I felt totally unprepared. I was like, how am I going to be a teacher? I have no idea what I'm doing. I can't even touch my toes. But I just followed the nudge because the nudge was so strong. And that was like the most empowering decision I ever made. And it was really the first time I allowed myself to believe in myself and that I could do something more with my life.
It's really interesting because yoga it's such an opportunity to awaken to who we are. And then like the drinking and the partying, it's super fun for a while, but really it's a shutting down. It's a shutting down of our natural expression and a numbing and all of this. And I wonder if that moment of trusting your intuition and leaving the church was so big. Like there was so much like, oh my God, so much of you could blossom out. And it's like, whoa, shut that down. And then when you realize shutting it down is not going to work anymore, it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah. And I was really afraid of being seen. I actually just wrote a Facebook post about this. And I was never a person that would ever like speak my truth. I wouldn't voice my opinions. I wouldn't speak up for my needs in relationships. I had terrible friendships where I just was bullied by my friends, and I would never raise my hand in class. Like I just wasn't that girl. So really being a coach and starting to market myself online just a few short years ago was like the first time I learned to use my voice. And I think I'm sort of deviating from your question, but let's just go with it.
Totally perfect.
But like something that I just want everyone that, you know, sees me online and just in general to know is that, like we were just saying, it's a process. And like, even though this is the stuff that I teach and I help people really find and then express themselves, like I'm still on this journey too. And I think that's so important because like none of us are perfect, and we should never put anyone on a pedestal.
Right. And it's so interesting. I really believe that everything that comes to us, all of our struggles, it's all for us. It's all, you know, everything is on our side. Everything is on our side. So just that you were somebody that had such a hard time speaking up, that was on your side. Like it was really bringing your attention to somewhere that now is completely your strength and serving other people.
Exactly. I totally believe that. Like, this is something I ask my clients too when they talk about their weaknesses. I'm like, well, how can you see this as a strength? Because we can see every quality that we have as something that's serving us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So then with yoga, that being the first time that you felt like, okay, I'm in my body and I'm empowered and I'm capable of feeling myself and maybe being myself a little bit more, what was this sort of tiptoe progression from, ooh, here's a bit of empowerment to coaching? And also because I saw on your website all of the variety of things that you've done before coaching, like you were a professional beer taster.
Yeah. I think I have ice cream thrower on there as well. Yeah, I could throw ice cream across a street and then catch it in a bowl.
And you were making money doing this?
Yeah. So during all those years where I was just kind of lost and partying, I would just kind of float around and like whatever I bumped into, I would just do, like including guys. So I had so many different jobs, and really it was just, I was trying to find myself. And so I tried everything, which I think is really great. Like I knew I wanted to find myself. I wasn't just going to be stuck doing one thing my whole life. So, I mean, I tried interior design. I started to get my real estate license, which I didn't finish the exam for. I have a degree in photography, so I tried wedding photography for a while. I tried video editing. I worked for a brewery and I gave tours of the brewery, and like I learned how to professionally taste beer. I catered for an ice cream company, and like that's where I learned to toss ice cream. So yeah, everything sort of led me to where I am now, and I'm grateful for all of that floating, because it really made me realize that like I was trying to put myself into a box, and I don't belong in a box, and neither does anyone else. And just like going with the flow, like it is okay if you don't know what you want to do. Like just try everything and it will lead you to where you're supposed to go. So I ended up in yoga teacher training, and like I didn't just like tiptoe in, I just dove. Like that little, just the first taste of empowerment I had, I was like, whoa, I like this. And it was like 2 weeks into yoga teacher training when I realized that wasn't enough for me. Like I wanted to be able to take people deeper than what I could do in a class on a mat. And so I decided I wanted to be a life coach. And I love telling this story because I love the synchronicity of it all. Like the universe is so fun. So I started looking for life coaching certifications online, and I found this one that was actually for yoga teachers who were becoming life coaches. And it was very intuitive based, and it felt so good to me. And I scrolled down to the bottom of that page, and there was a photo of the trainer for that coaching program. And it just so happened to be my yoga teacher trainer.
What?
Yeah, like so random. So I was like, okay, this is meant to be. So I went to her I told her I found the program. She was so excited. She gave me a 50% scholarship to it.
What?
Yeah. Like she gave me all this extra training, like how to lead workshops. And like, it was so beautiful. So yeah, then from there, I was certified to be a life coach. And then after that point, I sort of froze and I was like, wait, this is too big for me. What am I doing?
That's really interesting that you said that, because I've heard you say before, or I think that you wrote it, like you thought you weren't enough. And also at the same time, you thought you were too much.
Yeah.
How do you, like, when you're saying that, what do you mean? Like for somebody that's like, wait, what do you mean? How can you be not enough and too much at the same time?
Yeah. So my personality is kind of big. And like, if you've seen me, like I have a lot of tattoos, I have pink hair, like, you know, I speak my truth online. Like I'm not going to hide who I am. And I, for a really long time, didn't think that who I was okay, that who I was would be accepted. So I just toned myself down a lot to sort of be invisible.
Like personality wise, like you were just trying to be sweet and nice and shiny, or like what you were saying, how were you toning yourself down?
Never confronted anyone about anything. So if something bothered me, I would just bottle it up. I toned down the way I dressed. I still had tattoos, but I dressed in a way that was screaming like, please don't look at me, which is, it's so weird. Like, again, I fluctuated between, no, this is who I am, I'm going to own it. And wait a second, you might not like me. I might not be enough for you. So let me just hide. And really like they sort of tie into each other, because when I was toning myself down, I wasn't accepted then. So then I was like, maybe this means that I'm not enough. And so then I formed that belief, and I was just going back and forth and back and forth. And finally I was like, shit, like I'm so tired of this. I need to just be myself. And if people don't like me, they can go away.
Right. And when we play these games, like when you're not just totally being yourself, you're up in your head, like you said, sort of creating a story, like, well, maybe they just don't like me, blah, 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 blah. And if you get back down into your body, you can't help but just let the natural you flow. So when, and I think this is important too, for people to hear that it's normal, really. I don't think we ever just, I'm so happy to hear all of this about your story, that we ever just jump into like, oh, hey, I'm me and I'm just going to be me and fuck all y'all, the end. I don't ever see it work that way, except for a few stray unicorns, maybe. I don't know. It's really normal to be like, okay, yes, I'm doing this. And oh, wait, oh my God, can I do this? And okay, yes, I'm doing this. And oh, can I do this? Can I really do this? It's fine. Like, just keep moving. And I think like loving yourself through the periods where you're trying something else and you're not so sure and you're not so certain.
Yeah, we all go through that. I mean, I have a program, course called the DGAF Academy, where I literally teach people how to stop giving a fuck about like what people
I was going to ask you, like, how would you walk with a client through something like this waffling back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I cover. It's 30 lessons, but I mean, the thing is, we all want to be loved and accepted. It's just human nature to want to be loved and accepted. So if you want people to accept you, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So don't beat yourself up about it. That's okay. But what you don't want to do is let other people's opinions of you affect how you feel about you. So like the very first thing I would say to do is ask yourself, like, let's say you want a certain person to have a specific reaction to you. Ask yourself, how can I give that to myself?
Yes.
How can I make myself feel that way so I don't need it from them?
I love that, because there was in no way a dishonoring of how anybody is feeling. So it's not like, you just shouldn't care. Like, you shouldn't care what anybody thinks and just suck it up and be tough and be yourself and be bold. Like, it's everything. It's like, so you're feeling this way, and can we build on that?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that like, if you preach, not giving a fuck, that you're just tough as nails all the time and you don't have feelings, but like, you're not some sort of like zero fucks robot. Like, and I've had people really like purposefully push my buttons, and it's almost seemed like they were trying to hurt me to see if I would give a fuck about what they were saying so they could prove me wrong or something. And like, the thing is, we're all human. No matter how secure in yourself you are, there's still gonna be times when words hurt or people's actions hurt you, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then it's like, how do I care for myself through this? And is there, is there something that I can look at and grow from here? And not that you become a doormat or anything like that. I don't get that from what you're saying at all. But yeah, no, gosh. I am curious. So I'm thinking about the coaching world. And when I was getting into like trying to build this business online and looking through, like, everybody was saying, like, you need to hire a coach, you need to hire a coach. And I eventually did. And she was somewhere sort of in the middle. She was great. She wasn't this super shiny perfectionist, like, everything is pink glitter and we think nothing but positive thoughts all the time. And you need to charge $10,000 for your coaching services. But it wasn't necessarily quite what you're offering either. Where do I want to go with this? I've got like 5 things I want to talk about. Playing big versus playing small, because this is big coach speak, business coach speak. I remember her telling me, she was like, what do you want? What do you want? And I was like, well, like, I told her exactly what I wanted to do with my business and the way that I wanted to be useful in the world and the things that I wanted to create. And like, I really just want to be home in my pajamas and work with my clients and create programs. And she's like, you need to think bigger. Like, I was like, I want to be able to pay for expensive farmers market produce and like take my wife out on nice dates and give my family nice things. And that's, she's like, you need to want like $10,000 a month, and you need to want the booking world tours, and you need to want a book deal. And I was like, but I don't though. Like, but that's not what I thought at first. I was like, oh, do I? Oh my God, am I playing small? And it took me not that long. I just had to step out of that session and be like, is that what I want? I don't think so. I don't think that's actually what I want. How did you get to this place of not just preaching we need to want everything, like this materialistic, if you're not charging $1,000 a session, you're not owning your worth. And how did you muddle through all of that to find this clarity?
It took a while. I'll admit I got lost for about a year because I wasn't trusting myself, and I was listening to these other coaches that I looked up to online because they seemed big and they were confident and they seemed to know what they were talking about. And since I didn't really know a lot about success mindset and growing a business, I just took what they said as the truth without really asking myself, how does this feel to me? And so, and I actually remember one time on a group coaching call, there was a coach asking someone, like, what kind of car do you want? Like, what's your dream car? Mm-hmm. And the person said, well, I want a brand new Honda Civic. And the coach was like, Honda? No, like, think bigger. Like, if you could have anything, trying to tell her that like her dream wasn't good enough. And like, it just didn't sit right with me. Like, my dream car is a Toyota 4Runner, like I don't need anything. Like, I don't want anything else. And that's okay. And, I was looking at people thinking that I had to have a lot of money and lead a certain kind of lifestyle and buy expensive things like, Chanel, which I've never given a shit about, in order to be interesting and in order for people to want to follow me online, which is such a load of bullshit. The thing that makes people want to follow you online is the fact that they can relate to you, period, and you can help them. And, I sort of don't remember where I was going with this, but yeah, like I got lost for a while and thought I needed to be different to be desirable to hire, and to follow. And that's just, it's not the case. And it sucks that coaches are putting their own fears and their own like false ideas of what success really is onto other people and making them feel like their dreams aren't good enough.
Mm-hmm. And just really externalizing this idea of playing big. So there's all of these, like, you know, you got to play big and you've got to push your edges and it's all like outside of us. And I'm not saying like the material stuff is bad. Like there are so many beautiful things in the world. And I love the energy exchanges that we have with other people and we can want things, of course. But I just think there's so many more, how do I want to say this? How would you define playing big? And what was this phrase that you used the other day? Oh, like pushing your edge.
Yeah. So the way I think about leaning on your edge is the same thing of like stepping out of your comfort zone. And really, I think playing big, it's sort of an overused phrase. So how do I want to put it? It's really like just allowing yourself to be who you really are and want what you really want, and then actually take the uncomfortable action you need to take to get there. And everyone's quote unquote big is going to look different. It's going to be so unique to them. And, you know, I thought for a while that I needed to, you know, write books and be a speaker and have sort of the cookie cutter coach career that looked like everyone else. And like, for me, that's not what big looks like. And I'm not even sure what big is for me. I know, what did I say the other day about leaning into my edge, about how it's not anything external?
Oh yeah. You were saying it's like your next level, your next layer of realness or being real.
Yeah, because for me, like my whole like goal of life now is to help people be themselves and to realize that who you are is not only okay, but it's exactly who you're meant to be. Like you don't need to be different at all. And so for me, like my edge is diving into that next layer of realness and showing the people in my community like more of myself and being even more vulnerable. Like for me, that's being bigger. Really leading by example is being bigger for me. And like whatever that ends up looking like, you know, materially down the line, like maybe I will write a book, that's fine, but I'm just not planning it out. I'm just taking it day by day and seeing where the universe wants to take me.
And all of that, everything you said, like you can't, like really being real. And, you know, in this world, I'm sure you must get even more sick of it, just all of these overused buzzwords. But when you actually apply them and you're actually being yourself and you're actually being real and authentic and all of that, it like oozes through your words. It comes through your post. Like you can't fake it. Like just, you know, we've been talking about the sort of cookie cutter image of what a coach looks like. But then I think there's also the cookie cutter, if you want to call it that, image of like what a rebel looks like. And if I'm a rebel, I do, and I say this and I show up this way. And so there's like rebellion just for the sake of being a rebel versus rebellion because when we're actually being ourselves, we're all literally the only us. So that is going to be rebellious in and of itself. You don't have to try to be a rebel.
Yeah.
I feel like you've seen a bit of that too.
Yeah. I see that all the time.
Yeah.
and really, I think the loudest person in the room, so to speak, is always the person who really needs the attention. And, you know, I think true confidence is quiet confidence, and you can command attention with your energy. You don't have to scream about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And it's so fresh. I just kept thinking, like, as I was preparing for this and listening to other interviews and things that you had been on and listening back over your old videos, I just kept thinking, like, gosh, she's such a breath of fresh air. And I don't think I've said this yet. Out of all, because I used to do all of the Facebook group, like, you know, spiritual business ladies and follow these various business coaches. And after a while, I got it all out, but I couldn't get you out. I could not take you out of my feed because you really are a breath of fresh air. And I think that is because you are just so yourself, and your message, as you're evolving, like your message evolves and you see that. And I read through your posts and every time, like, yes, that's it. Oh, so good. It feels good to read what you have to say. Whereas I feel like there's this marketing technique where there's a lot of fear put into things, where it's like, you know, you're hitting your clients' pain points. And I think there can be room to do that gently, but not with this force of making people feel more wrong and broken essentially, so they'll hire you?
Yeah.
How did you, because I heard you talk about recently, you were like challenging people in your group. Actually, I don't know if this was recent or not. I read it recently, to market and share posts purely being positive, not just for the sake of being positive, but just to see like, what's it like to not use fear as a tactic? How did that come to you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm so flattered that you kept me in your feed. Like, you can't see me right now, but I have a huge smile on my face. Like, that means so much to me. But yeah, the post I just put up was really a challenge for myself. And I felt like other people were going to need it too. And, one of my like Achilles heels, I guess, is that if I let myself, I can really spiral down and focus on problems. And I focus on where I am instead of where I want to be. And so because I was doing that, I noticed that I was doing that in my writing when I'm writing to my audience. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to pass on that energy to other people. And so I thought, what if instead of focusing on their pain points, I just focused on where they wanted to end up. Mm-hmm. And I just focused on the positive. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And so I challenged my community to do that as well.
Do you find the what if phrase to be one that you use a lot, just as you're sort of like opening up to your intuition and your curiosity and you're exploring and you're expressing and learning and guiding and teaching, just like, what if? Like this feels kind of right.
Yeah. I mean, you have to ask yourself that question if you want anything to change. Like, I think we oftentimes ask ourselves the wrong questions, and that's how we get stuck. We ask, what am I doing wrong? Why are people not hiring me? Things like that. Why is my online community not growing? Why am I not getting likes or comments? Whatever it is. But those are the wrong questions to ask. Because again, if you focus on your problems, that's what you're going to manifest more of. So instead, you can ask yourself, like, what if I am good enough? What if this does work? What if I am going to get to where I want to be? What if I am helping people? And start asking those kind of questions. And then you'll actually see your reality start to reflect that back to you.
Absolutely. And even for people who the whole manifesting conversation might feel a little too fluffy for them, you could even just say, like, the more that you're going on about what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? You're still just going to be putting that out there.
Yeah.
Like that's going to ooze itself into your message. Like, it's going to be felt. You can't, everything's interconnected. That's going to show up in what you're putting out. And it's really interesting that you're saying that, because literally the last conversation that I had, the last interview that I did, and I haven't put it out yet, I'm not sure what order these will be in, but it was with an intuitive eating coach guide. And we had this exact same discussion about when people are getting into learning to eat intuitively and learning to listen to their bodies, there's still so much fear. And the big question is like, what am I doing wrong? Everything is, what am I doing wrong? And it's really interesting that I don't know if that's a subconscious way we feel like we're keeping ourselves safe and small and trying to like look out for all the pitfalls, or what that is. But it seems to be everywhere. Just this assumption that we're wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, online marketers don't help that at all.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, I mean, any marketers, like the cover of magazines, don't help that at all.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Your intuition, you're a really intuitive person. And I'm so curious about that, because I feel like everybody talks about their intuition a little bit differently. I had an experience, it was maybe a year ago in your group, where I was kind of in a sticky spot with just expressing what I wanted to express in my business and in my posts and in social media. And just kind of getting caught up in a lot of like listening to what other people had to say, and a lot of like astrology stuff. And this stuff is all great, and I think meant to be supportive, and in tarot cards and all of this stuff. But I just sort of kept feeling like every time I would read the astrology stuff that I really trusted, or I talked to an astrologer that I was working with, or I talked to somebody who was doing like tarot cards or whatever, every time I'd be like, yeah, I know. Like nothing new, nothing surprising. Like, yep, I'm already doing that. Yep, I already already know that. Okay, just do the work, Randy, do the work was what I kept feeling. And it was one day, it's like coming back to me in detail. I was sitting in my little sauna, which is like a tent that my head and my arms stick out of. And I was typing in, and I was on Facebook trying to get a post out, and it pops up that you're live in your group. And I was like, oh, Jess is live. So I go over there and you're talking and it's great. And is it tarot cards that you do? I don't know much about this stuff. The cards.
I was doing oracle cards.
Okay, oracle cards. And maybe in a moment you can explain what that is. But I was like, okay, fun. And in the back of my mind, I was like, this is not for right now, Randy. This is not for you, Randy. Not right now, Randy. And I asked a question. I was like, I just, I think I was just trying to distract myself in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I asked you a question. You had like a bunch of great things to say. And then you reached for the cards and you were like, no, you don't need that. And I was like, well, shit. All right. Thanks, Jess. And it was such a moment of like, I can trust myself. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated you for that. So if you, though I think that they are useful, like there have been times in my life when these things have been very useful and they probably will again, it's just sort of trusting that nudge of when you need a certain thing and when a particular path is for you. So intuition, I guess I'm asking you just to riff a little bit, intuition and guiding people and learning what to trust in your experience.
Gosh, that's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, it is. It's big and broad and not real direct. That's like my specialty. It's terrible.
Wonderful. Well, in my coaching, really to be a coach, you really have to be able to trust yourself, and you have to be able to ask people hard questions that may make them uncomfortable, but you see the bigger picture for them, and that getting uncomfortable is what's going to help them, right? Get to where they want to be, like to the other side or whatever. So really, like, coaching really helped me tap into and continue to develop my intuition, because every time I was talking to someone, I would get these nudges of things to say or questions to ask. And I realized that the more I would trust that, the more incredible the conversation would go and the better results they would get, or like transformation they would get from the session. So it's sort of like a muscle. The more you use it, the louder it's going to get. And with things like oracle cards, I really started using those as a tool, again, to help me develop my intuition. And I'm so glad that I pulled that card for you and then said, no, you don't need this. That means it was working. But even though I pulled that card, I really felt like, no, like you don't need any of this. And then, I mean, could you imagine what would have happened if I didn't say that to you?
Right. Like on both accounts, like for me, that was such an affirmation of self-trust. And for you, I feel like it could have been so easy to just be like, well, that doesn't like, of course I have to read the thing, I have to follow through and look like I know what I'm talking about. And you didn't. And I was so impressed with you and just the whole thing.
Thank you.
What about, I want to talk about failure, like as people are learning to trust themselves. And so let's say they get a hit of something that maybe feels like intuition and they act on it, but then it doesn't turn out the way that they thought that it was going to turn out. Like, how do you help people navigate trial and error as they're learning to trust themselves and learning to build something?
Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean that they were wrong or that their gut instinct was wrong at all. Really, like, we don't always know how the universe is going to align things for us. And we don't always know where things are going to lead. But if we can just take one step and then the next step and then the next step, eventually we'll end up seeing the bigger picture. But it's about trusting in that time when you just don't know, like sort of taking that leap of faith, right? And just trusting that everything is happening for me, not to me. And even though what I'm doing right now may look like a failure to the outside world, or it may look like I've made a mistake, that's not necessarily the case. I just don't see the whole path lit up right now, and just really trusting that, because there are no failures. You can't fuck anything up. So as long as you keep moving, you're moving forward.
Right. It's so true. As these moments that we didn't have something turn out the way that we thought that it was going to, that's not a failure, and we probably should stop. It would support us to stop acting like that's a failure. It's more just like, I don't know why it turned out that way, but I haven't seen the whole path yet.
Yeah. And maybe I will very soon. It's just not clear to me now. And I've had a lot of things in my business, like things that I've been trying to sell or things I've been creating. And it was sort of like a flop, I guess you could call it. But maybe a month later, I realized that, wait, that was just a precursor to this other huge idea.
Yes.
So that wasn't really even the end result. It was just something I had to practice to get to where I am right now.
Right. And that helps you relax, right? And I feel like, at least for me, when I'm relaxed, I'm more able to connect with my intuition. Whereas when we're like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? It's hard to get those signals. Maybe not for you being like super master intuitive and all this stuff, but for some of us who...
No, I still get that.
Do you? Yeah. They think the relaxation piece and the self-acceptance, I think that's so much in that is self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So one last question. And before that, I want to let everybody know that all of your links are going to be in the show notes, and you're the Truth Igniter on social media.
On Instagram, I'm the Truth Igniter. And then I have a Facebook group that's Ignite Your Truth.
Okay, perfect. So all of that is going to be in the show notes for people to find if you want to go work with Jess, if you want to just read her posts and be inspired, if you want to look at some of her programs that are on her website. And the last question, so this is the Free Spirit Academy podcast. And the way that I describe a free spirit is just you when you get to be yourself. And that's it. And that evolves, of course, but just like the natural expression of who you are. When you hear the phrase free spirit, what comes up for you?
When I think of being a free spirit, I think of giving yourself permission to just be yourself, regardless of what anyone else is going to think or say. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, that's when you feel true freedom and liberation.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was really lovely.
Really a treat.